Well, good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, and what a great day to get together and start our day off right by spending just a little time in God's Word. And then today we're going to get kind of a little history lesson also. And it happened almost by accident. As you recall, last week we were on the show, we were in the San Antonio area and the Texas Hill Country. And one of the places we went to one day, we went down to the Alamo. And the Alamo, of course, was the premier memorabilia spot for the U.S.-Mexican War that took place in the 1840s. And so that's kind of the background of what we're going to come to today. Let me give you the verse for today, and then I'll explain what you're going to see. It actually comes from, well, the Sermon on the Mount, and that part of the Sermon on the Mount that we call the Beatitudes. And it is chapter 5 of the book of Matthew. And Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God." And that introduces the topic of making peace and being reconcilers between people or between whatever the fighting entities are. And in this case, our country did a good thing, and not surprisingly, because we want to be peacemakers. Out of the U.S.-Mexican War, 1840s, came a situation that I didn't even know anything about before we were on our way home. And on our very first night, we stayed in El Paso. And I just went on, I said, I wonder if there's anything interesting around here in El Paso that I could share with my friends on Inspiration for Today. And then I was thinking, well, what about the border? We're right on the border. What does the border wall look like here? And so let me show you some of those pictures, and it's a very high fence or wall that goes along the Rio Grande River. Now you know that the Rio Grande River is really the actual border between U.S. and Mexico in this area. And so I just wanted to get some pictures that would show you what that situation is, because we hear so much about people getting into this country through weak border system. Well, it's certainly, as you saw, not here. There's no way that people could climb this wall or fence. It just, I think, is impossible. And of course, there's so many people around anyway, this would not be the place. But seeing the wall led me to a place called the Chamizal, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, National Monument. And I had never heard of this. Had you? The Chamizal? And Chamizal. I didn't know what it was, but it was right on the border, and I thought, I'm going to take a look at this. So we went in and started looking around. Fascinating place and fascinating story. You see, what happened, the treaty that was made between the U.S. and Mexico that settled the border, and of course Texas at that time became an independent country. But the border between the United States and Mexico became the Rio Grande River. But wouldn't you know that in the El Paso area, a time came where the river shifted, and it shifted dramatically. And so what do you do? Do the land that stays, does it stay with Mexico, or does it go to the United States? Because you see, what shifted was it shifted further south, and that left a large portion that once was in Mexico, now by the river boundary, would be in the United States. Well, that actually began like 100 years of negotiation, but it never broke into war over that. And finally come down to, well, to the early 60s, and actually under John F. Kennedy, he reopened negotiations, and those negotiations went very well. After 13 months of negotiating, the U.S. and Mexico did reach agreement at what's called the Chamizal Convention of 1963. Now, that word, by the way, the Chamizal, I'm just having so hard with that time. It actually is a little, named after a small bush that was very common in this area. So it's actually named after a bush. But they had an agreement, but now you had a real issue because there were 5,600, some of it, by the way, went to Mexico, and some of it went to the United States. They pretty much, it wasn't divided right down the middle, but in terms of total acreage, that was nearly even. But 5,600 residents of El Paso were now going to be living in Mexico. And what the United States did is they went in and paid fair market price for those people's homes, and most all of them chose to relocate into other places of El Paso. And then finally it was decided, and that was of course the time when JFK was assassinated, and so on September 25th, 1964, President Adolfo Mateos and Lyndon Johnson shook hands and made it official that this treaty would now follow the permanent main channel of the Rio Grande, which in that area was basically cemented, and it's on the other side of the fence that you have been seeing, and that won't change because now it's in that area a paved riverbed. So that's how they solved it. And I think we all appreciate that in this case the two countries applied that verse, blessed are the peacemakers. The second part of that doesn't apply to countries, of course, then they will be called the sons of God. But it is a great reminder to us. We can resolve our personal problems with other people. And God says we'll be blessed for doing it. And if countries can do it, you and I can do it. We can do it. We can make peace with those with whom we have huge disagreements with. The disagreement is not as important as the relationship, no matter what it is. And that's what God says to us. Now I know in this area, when we got there to this monument, as we've looked around at it, there's not much there. I took a few pictures and videos, and I think you've seen it's really just now turned into a large park area, and people do enjoy the park. And when they do, I think there are just enough things there to remind us that this is a memorial park, one that actually notes where two countries were able to resolve their differences. The Bible and that example are great examples to us. God bless. I hope God used this in your heart, and I found it interesting to hear how this happened. God bless. See you tomorrow.